Hey everyone, today I'm going to record a video on Worldbuilding and share my process and techniques. Sure, many of you watching this probably already know a lot of this stuff, but hopefully you'll be able to pick up a couple things here and there from the video. I'm working in Unity for the project, and it's what I have been using for probably, about the last 6 months for Project Last Ember. When I started working on the project and creating this map, the first thing I started was the main village, the village of Oakenshore. The village itself is basically complete right now. I'd say it's about 90% of the final layout. It is the main quest hub and have the number of typical buildings you'd find in RPGs, MMOs. Like the inn, blacksmith, a temple, those kind of things. For me, world building, I approach it from a practical standpoint, and I rely, mainly on my years in the industry as an environment artist and making games, and as well as, someone who plays games. And typically I play a lot of medieval fantasy RPGs and MMOs. So I use those experiences to help me round out a map or zone and add the things that I think it needs to kind of make it interesting and fun to play. So, I started with my main village on this map. Then, thinking about the idea for the game, I started to build an early list of what types of quests and areas would be needed for the map. This list, it does kind of, it's I guess you'd say a work in progress. It keeps evolving as time goes on because there's always, at least for me, there's always ideas that you come up with along the way. Of things you think would make the map better, more visually interesting, and kind of fun. So, those things couldn't incorporate it as well. The range of quests include quests that pertain to the game's main storyline. But beyond that, there are various kinds of quests you will find in RPG games: fetch quests, delivery quests, hunt quests, etc. All of these quests need interesting areas for them to take place in. So those quests need to go hand in hand with the areas you create to support the village or town, as well as the main storyline quest. That is basically my thought process when laying out a zone or a map. I hope it makes sense. I'm by no means a game designer, but when you are a solo developer, you have to wear a lot of different hats. Hopefully, you're watching these videos and are a subscriber to my YouTube channel. You'll support the Kickstarter, and a game designer is one of the positions I hope to fill. Today, I wanted to include a small stone quarry somewhere on the map. It's not only something that I think adds visual interest to the world, but also provides another area for questing in the game. You might be asking, well, why a quarry? Well, this is practical part comes into the world going. If you have a village, you need to think of things that support that village and actually make it a viable place to live. Those kind of things, you need farms, you need crop fields, timber and lumber, mills for making flour for the baker, quarries for stone, mines for metals, and, so on and so on and so on. Saturday, it's a quarry. I wanted it to be a questing location that you would probably visit pretty early in the game, so it's not too far outside of the town or the village. This way, I looked around on the map, I found a good spot, and started to lay down some rock in a horseshoe shape. Basically, once I laid out that rock, then I started to think, okay, what kind of things do you need to support this environment? Naturally, going to need tools. You're going to need pickaxes, you're going to need shovels, you're going to need wagons to load the stone onto once it's cut from the quarry to get to the village. Also crates, barrels. You always need crates and barrels. Main kind of building that maybe they store, more important things in. As I go, just however natural kind of thing, like where I don't necessarily focus on just one thing. I kind of bounce around a lot. Maybe it's the ADHD in me, I guess. But, I'll build and work on one area of the scene for a little bit, and then I'll bounce around like I'm doing here, starting to put down some trees and vegetation and things that will support the area. You also notice as I world build, a lot of times you'll see me pull my camera back from the scene. A lot of times it is, I'll pull back to a road or a pathway, and what I'm trying to do is naturally just look and see what that area looks like from the approach looks like from that direction. If it looks interesting, if the way I'm placing the trees and rocks and various items like that helps to create kind of some cool negative shapes. So I do that a lot, and as I move around, but I think it's important to make things visually interesting naturally as you're running through the world. A lot of people, I think probably, and I completely understand, use things like speed tree and stuff like that to quickly be able to place trees down. I can guarantee you that every tree on this map has been hand placed by me. I like to do it that way. Granted, it does take longer, but I think by doing it that way, you create a lot more character in the world than you do by just, letting the computer randomly plop trees down. I know, and that you, as a world builder, I think by doing it that way, you get to know the map better and the world that you're creating better. And it also allows you to create a lot of kind of unique, kind of interesting, what I kind of usually call vignettes, where somewhere out in the world, you'll remember a little, like a little niche or something where you think, it would be cool maybe here to, maybe you've placed a skeleton and a sword, and that if that is something that later on you realize can either, if it's not just something kind of interesting and fun for the player to stumble across, that maybe they can create or make up their own story in their head from it. But it could also, eventually down the road become, a location for a quest. And I think if you throw stuff down, with speed tree or whatever, there's parts of the world that you may never realize those opportunities, because you've not spent really any time really building or designing or creating that part of the world. So I like to place everything myself, and that's typically the way that I do it. Again, it's not the fastest, but in my opinion, it helps to give you probably the best result overall when you do that work yourself. I mean, a lot of times one of the things I do try to focus on when I am world building is the story. The stories that I'm definitely trying to convey and tell to the player. But there are those little areas that you create that aren't necessarily part of gameplay, part of the main story, but they're areas that you just provide a little bit to the player, and that allows them to kind of make up in their head, the whole story, let's say. And I think it's fun. Like WoW does that a lot, used to do it. I used to be a big WoW player. Used to love that, running through the world, and you'd stumble across just that, like I was saying, you stumble across some skeleton under a tree, and it makes you wonder, how did he get there? What happened? That kind of thing. So, here, just gone back to a different area. Basically the approach, coming up to the quarry, doing a little more propping, adding in some natural assets, fallen trees and mushrooms. Just trying, again, to make the approach along that path more interesting. Add some different elements. Again, just trying to create visual interest, give things to the players to look at and see as they're running down the path. I think that's kind of, one of the things that you're trying to do and you want to try to achieve as your world building is, as that player is running along a path or part of the world, you want to provide a lot of different things for their eyes to move to. Just negative space created by the way you place trees, rocks, that kind of thing. But it's also different assets, different elements, whether it is just rocks, fallen trees, mushrooms, flowers, bushes, different props, those kind of things. Just stuff that as the player is running through the world, again, like I said, their eyes will move to as they're going, and it's all just little things that again, create more interest in the world and make it a better space, but to actually be in and play in. So at this point, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of shut up for a little bit and let you guys watch the video. If there are areas that I think maybe there's something I could add by jumping in and saying something, I will. Otherwise, I'll just kind of let you guys enjoy the rest of the video, and thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, that wasn't a very long break, but I promise you, I am not going to talk through this whole thing, because I don't, to one park that I do not enjoy, but at parks where, like I said, where I think maybe I need to say a little something, I will, and this is one of them. So, I just, kind of my process, like a lot of times with rocks and stuff, in the world in general, is I try to add elements that you see in the real world, and that's what I'm kind of starting to create right here, is kind of a natural gully between these two rocks, where the water up at the higher elevations in the hills and the mountains, maybe there's a little bit of drainage that over time has created this natural gully, and water flows down through there. So that is one of the things that I was doing right there. Another thing you'll notice maybe throughout the video is a lot of times what I tend to do is I mound the earth up, especially around large rock pieces and stuff. I just think it looks a little bit more natural, and it also helps to ground those elements. And a lot of times what I do as well, which I haven't done yet, haven't had time to, is I will create kind of a a rubble or rock texture that I will place in those mounded areas at the bottom of those rock formations to make it look like, a natural kind of erosion, the rock breaking away, chipping away over time. And then, it also creates a nice transition from the rock to the actual grass or dirt or whatever is in the surrounding area. The other thing I tend to do a lot of times is with trees, especially large trees, I will kind of mound the earth up around those at the base, kind of indicating that, if there's a larger rock structure underneath, they're not rock, but root structure underneath the trees. And that's what's causing the earth itself to kind of mound up. Another thing is like I said, I think it helps to ground those elements as trees and make them look more natural. Now, the small ones, I don't mess with, because, if you look in real life, there's usually not earth mounded up on small trees, but larger trees, a lot of times you will see that earth mounded up, because it's the root system from the tree that's actually pushing the ground up. And that would be one of the things that I recommend. I mean, it's, as much as you can when you're out in the real world, be aware of what's going on and take note of the world and the way nature is and the way things happen. Because it really goes a long way to bring those things into your world building to help make the world feel more believable, and that helps with the immersion and making the player feel like they really are in the world and it's a real place. So yeah, I would definitely recommend making sure that you're aware of your natural surroundings and you pay attention to those kind of things. Hey everyone, back one last time, wrapping this video up. I hope you guys have enjoyed it and made it all the way through. At this point, I'm gonna end with just a little walkthrough with some actual in-game footage, showing the final results of the board. I think, I'm happy with the way it came out, and I'm sure there'll probably be some other things as I continue to work on the project over the next months and stuff that I'll come back and add. Naturally, there'll be eventually quest givers and then potentially mobs that you have to deal with, maybe in here at some point. You'll notice as we come up on the approach, you'll notice that I added in a little broken down wagon. Again, that's one of those things where you add it in, you don't necessarily tell the full story. You just add it in and you allow the player to come up upon it and kind of fill in the story and what happened. I think those kind of things are, again, if they're little points of interest that you can add throughout the world to give it more life and make it more interesting. Well, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you actually maybe even learned something. And I hope you'll continue to follow the project and support the YouTube channel and subscribe on Instagram. Thank you.